Hello friends, welcome all of you to my channel, and today we will be talking on part 2nd of the acute kidney injury. So in the previous part we discussed about the acute kidney injury definition, we discussed about the different causes of acute kidney injury. Now we will describe in very detail about the basically renal causes of acute kidney injury. So in renal causes, one of the cause is renovascular cause. So in renovascular cause, the one of the cause that damage the renal vessels is hemolytic uremic syndrome. So what happens in hemolytic uremic syndrome? So first of all, if a child is infected, so usually the story starts from here that the child is infected with the E. coli, and initially the child presents with the diarrhea, and the diarrhea is usually having the stool is there is a presence of the blood in the stool, that is known as hemorrhagic diarrhea, and when the diarrhea recovers in almost 1 week, then basically what happens, the E. coli that has infected the child is of a strain 0157H7. So it is basically known as hemorrhagic E. coli. It is known as hemorrhagic E. coli, and this strain basically produces SIGA toxin, it produces SIGA toxin. And what SIGA toxin will do? The SIGA toxin will bind to the glomerulus, bind to the GB3 receptor that is present in the glomerular epithelium. So let's suppose this is a glomerulus, and let's suppose these are the glomerular epithelial cells. So these epithelial cells have this GB3 receptor, and this GB3 receptor is basically the SIGA toxin bind to this GB3 receptor and basically damage it. So this is what the SIGA toxin will do to the glomerulus, that is the glomerulus of the kidney. So once the endothelial cell of the glomerulus is damaged, then what happens? Let's suppose this is a glomerulus vessel, and there is a damage of endothelial cells due to the SIGA toxin, and due to the damage, what happened? The platelet has activated now. And due to the activation of platelets, there is a microthrombi formation. So this is a microthrombi. So this is formed in the vessels, and due to this microthrombi, whatever the RBC is flowing in this vessel, in these microvessels, that get actually squeezed by the thrombus. So this thrombus is basically squeezing the RBC, and that squeezed RBC basically is destroyed. Ultimately that RBC is destroyed, so resulting hemolysis, and this hemolysis will result in the anemia. And such type of anemia is known as microangiopathic hemolytic anemia. So basically, the story starts from the child who has a prodromal symptom of the diarrhea, the bloody diarrhea, and after 1 week of the diarrhea, the toxin actually get attached to the endothelial cells of glomerulus, basically into the GB3 receptor, and now the platelet has activated, the microthrombi has formed in the microvessels, and whatever the thrombus is formed, due to which the RBC is squeezed by the thrombus, as there is very little space here, and in such cases the squeezed RBC is basically destroyed, or they get ruptured, and due to this that is known as hemolysis and results in anemia. So it is known as microangiopathic hemolytic anemia. So I think you understood the hemolytic uremic syndrome. Basically, the compressed RBC when seen in the peripheral blood smear are the typical type of cells are found. Those are known as histiocytes. So histiocytes are basically the compressed RBC seen in the peripheral blood smear, also known as helmet cell. So histiocytes is also known as helmet cells, as it has a shape of the helmet. That's why it is known as helmet cells. So in this way, the toxin can result in the acute kidney injury, and this is actually one of the renovascular cause of acute kidney injury. The another renovascular cause is thrombocytopenic thrombotic purpura, or it is also known as thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. What happens here? Basically, it is an autoimmune disease where the antibody is formed, and this antibody, the autoimmune antibodies, basically inhibit an enzyme known as ADAM-TS113. This is the enzyme ADAM-TS13. So the antibody basically inhibits this enzyme, so resulting the enzyme deficiency. And whenever this enzyme is deficient, what happens? There is a factor known as von Willebrand factor. There is a factor known as von Willebrand factor. What this factor will do, this factor actually helps to attach the platelet to the endothelium. This factor attach platelet to endothelium. Now what happens, due to the deficiency of the ADAM TS113, there is basically unopposed von Willebrand factor activation, and when this factor is unopposedly activated, what happens, the number of circulating von Willebrand factor, the activated type of von Willebrand factor is increased in the circulation, and that's why there is a in vessels, in the blood vessels, there's a multiple number of von Willebrand factor they are circulating, and they will lead to the adhesion of the platelet to the areas where the endothelium is damaged, and ultimately there is a microthrombi formation in the multiple areas, and due to which if the same situation occurs in the kidney renal vessels, then the renal vessels perfusion is also affected. So this happens in the case of thrombocytopenic thrombotic purpura. And what happens, basically the in the formation of multiple microthrombi, the thrombocytes or the platelets are basically used up, and due to the used up, as the platelets are basically used up, resulting in the bleeding from the various sites and result in the anemia also. So this happens in case of the thrombocytopenic thrombotic purpura. So let me again repeat once. This is autoimmune disease that inhibits the enzyme ADAMTS113, and due to this there is an unopposed von Willebrand factor activation, and this factor actually has a role in thrombi formation. So basically this they will actually cause the multiple microthrombi formation at various sites whenever the endothelial is damaged, and ultimately the microthrombi will affect the perfusion of the renal kidney. What happens in case of the malignant hypertension? Basically in malignant hypertension, when a person has a hypertension for very long time, and if the hypertension is so much malignant, then the normal artery is now due to the intimal hyperplasia and the smooth muscle cell hyperplasia, basically the vessels get narrowed, and due to this narrowing of the vessels, the perfusion of the kidney get affected, and due to the decrease in the perfusion of the kidney, there will be the kidney injury. So in this way there will be the acute kidney injury in case of basically malignant hypertension also. So you should know this one thing, that the malignant hypertension usually causes chronic kidney disease rather than the acute kidney disease. So this causes this actually one of the rare cause that it will cause the acute kidney injury. Yes, it can cause the acute attack on the chronic kidney injury. Now let's study the fourth cause of renovascular causes of the acute kidney injury. The fourth cause is atheroembolic kidney disease. So what happens in the atheroembolic kidney disease? So let's take an example. Suppose if any person has a heart attack and you plan for the doctor plan for the coronary angiography. So let's suppose that during the coronary angiography, the femoral vessel is taken. So let's suppose this is a vessels, and let's suppose this is a femoral vessel. So femoral vessel is taken, and a guide wire is inserted via the iliac vessel into the abdominal aorta, and when the guide wire is inserted in the vessels, let's suppose there is a thrombus in the abdominal aorta. So let's suppose there is a atherosclerotic plaque in abdominal aorta. So this I have written the atherosclerotic plaque, and let's suppose this guide wire, whenever it is going upward towards the heart, it actually breaks the atherosclerotic plaque. So the atherosclerotic plaque is basically the broken, and the fragments of the plaque can go into the kidney and can block the small renal microvasculature, and that we will call the embolus. So basically the guide wire, when it is going from the femoral artery towards the heart, in the way if there is a thrombus, if there is any kind of atherosclerotic plaque, the guide wire may actually damage the plaque, and the plaque can rupture, and the embolus that is ruptured from the plaque can go into the renal microvasculature and can block them. So in this way, the renal perfusion is hampered, and in this way, there will be acute kidney injury. So in this way, the acute kidney injury can happen due to the during the coronary angiography. So the patient will come. So the patient was of heart attack, and you plan for his betterment, that you plan for the coronary angiography, but instead of his betterment you developed him the acute kidney injury. So these things you have to keep in mind, that whether there is atherosclerotic plaque or not, so that you will not encounter the acute kidney injury after the coronary angiography. So in renal causes we talked about, so renal AKI we talked about the renovascular causes. We talked about the renovascular causes. Now we will talk in renal AKI. Now we will talk about the ischemic causes of renal acute kidney injury. So ischemic causes. So in ischemic causes, the first thing is cardiopulmonary bypass surgery. So cardiopulmonary. So I think if you are seeing this video first, then please go through the part 1 of the acute kidney injury, so that this video will be easy for you. Cardiopulmonary bypass surgery. So what happens in case of cardiopulmonary bypass surgery? So what happens, actually you have to know one thing, that the kidney is actually that organ which is more vulnerable to hypoxia. And especially in the kidney, basically the kidney has two parts. The outer part is cortex and the inner part is medulla. And basically the medulla has also divided into two parts, outer medulla and inner medulla. So the outer medulla, the amount of blood supply in the outer medulla is normally less. The amount of blood supply in the outer medulla of the kidney is less, and whenever any kind of hypoxic insult occur to the kidney, then first of all the affected part in the kidney is outer medulla. So at first the part that is affected in the kidney is outer medulla. So now let's suppose if you are doing any kind of heart surgery. So if patient is on a heart surgery, then one thing you have to keep in mind, that during the heart surgery, usually the blood is bypassed from the heart. So the machine that is used is known as cardiopulmonary bypass surgery. So usually the heart and lungs are bypassed into a machine known as cardiopulmonary bypass machine, and this surgery is known as cardiopulmonary bypass surgery. And in this case, what happened? The kidney and other body parts basically needs the pulsatile blood flow. But what happens? This pulsatile blood flow will be given by the heart. But there is a heart surgery. So the pulsatile blood flow cannot be given by heart. It will be given by the machine, that is cardiopulmonary machine. But this machine, the bad thing about this machine is what? That this cardiopulmonary bypass machine, the blood flow by this cardiopulmonary bypass machine is non-pulsatile. And other organs are basically not so much vulnerable to hypoxia in very less insult, but the kidney outer medulla is so much vulnerable to hypoxia that whenever there is a non-pulsatile blood flow to the kidney, then the outer medulla start to damage. So outer medulla, there will be the less perfusion, and due to which there will be the acute kidney injury. So in this way, during the cardiopulmonary bypass surgery, the problem occurs. So in ischemic causes, the first cause we already discussed. Now the second cause is prolonged anesthesia. As we should know that the anesthesia are basically the vasodilators. So let's suppose you are you estimated that the operation will last for 2 hours, but suppose for any reason, due to the complication or any reason, the operation has now crossed 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hours, then you have to add anesthesia for extra time. And anesthesias are basically vasodilators, and whenever and as they are vasodilators, actually what happen, the perfusion of the medulla will get affected. The perfusion of medulla will get affected as they are more vulnerable. And as the perfusion of medulla will get affected, ultimately in any hypoxic condition, the main thing is that the tubules get necrosed. So there will be tubular necrosis, there will be acute tubular necrosis. So in this way, the renal tubules or the proximal convoluted tubules, like that tubules get necrosed, and this is what that occurs in the prolonged anesthesia. Now we in the actually renal cause of renal AKI, we talked about the sepsis. We already talked about sepsis. In this video we talked about so sepsis was discussed in the previous video. In this video we talked about the ischemic causes, and we also talked about the renovascular causes. And now we will talk about the toxins that damage the kidney. Now we talked about toxins. So toxins that damage kidney can be exogenous toxin, can be endogenous toxin. So the exogenous toxin example, first we will talk about the Chinese herbal medicine. The Chinese herbal medicine is used in China and used in the Europe, and there is a presence of aristocolic acid in the Chinese herbal medicine, and this aristocolic acid basically damages the tubules, and such type of nephropathy is known as Balkan nephropathy. Another example of exogenous toxin are basically the contrast that usually given in case of the MRI scan or the CT scan. So the contrast usually we will call it as a contrast induced nephropathy. So in exogenous, the third one is basically the drug like the aminoglycosides. So the aminoglycosides, what it will do, basically the aminoglycosides damages the V2 receptor present in collecting duct. So in the collecting duct, what happens, there is a cells, and the cells have the V2 receptor. This V2 receptor actually helps in absorbing the water. But what happens if this V2 receptor is damaged in the collecting duct? The water is not absorbed, and due to which there is a so the aminoglycosides basically damage the V2 receptor present in the collecting duct, and due to the reason that the water will not absorb now, so there is a more amount of fluid in the urine. So that's why usually in all AKI there will be the decreased GFR, and there will be decreased amount of urine. So there will be in other AKI, in acute kidney injury, there will be the oligouria. But as in aminoglycosides, the V2 receptor is damaged and the water is not absorbed in the body, due to which there will be non-oligouric AKI. So there will be non-oligouric AKI, that is the urine output will be normal, but the person will have the decreased GFR. So there will be decreased GFR, but the urine output will be normal. So in this case, there is a difficult to diagnose that the person has the acute kidney injury or not, but due to the drug history, we can know this thing. Amphotericin B and cisplatin both causes tubular damage. So both will actually cause the tubular damage. Now let's talk about the endogenous cause of the acute kidney injury. So the endogenous cause, in endogenous cause, we have first thing is a mismatch blood transfusion. So whenever there is a mismatch of the blood transfusion, let's suppose you are of the blood group A positive, and let's suppose you took the blood of blood group B, then in that condition there will be the hemolysis, and due to the hemolysis, what happens that the hemoglobin actually is excreted in the urine, so there will be hemoglobinuria, that is the hemoglobin is excreted in the urine, and due to the hemoglobin, as the hemoglobins are a larger molecule, so somehow they cannot be excreted well in the urine, and they will actually block the tubules. So they will actually block the renal tubules, and in this way the kidney is affected. So in endogenous, the another condition is during the car crash. So what happened during any car crash, if the person has the limb injury or the limb is crushed, so what happens in this case, in that case, due to the more myocyte destruction or the more muscle destruction, what happens that the myoglobin released from the muscle is also excreted in the urine, and due to this myoglobin also larger molecule, so they will also block the tubules. So the such type of thing is known as myoglobinuria. That the myoglobin is excreted in the urine, and they will basically block the tubules, and in this way they will affect the kidney. Now this is one more cause of the renal acute kidney injury, that is tumor lysis syndrome. So what happens if anyone has a cancer, and for the cancer, if the person is taking the chemotherapy, let's suppose for the cancer treatment the person is taking the chemotherapy, so due to that chemotherapy, what happens, the chemotherapy will actually break down the cancerous cell, so there will be more cell breakdown due to the chemotherapy. These more cells, I mean to say that these are the cancer cells. So the cancer cells will break down in a large quantity, and due to which there will be more amount of DNA is produced in the sense that the cancer cell will release, it's better to say DNA is released, and the DNA is degraded in the body and formed uric acid, and this uric acid basically will actually block the crystals while they are excreting from the kidney. So they will actually block the tubules and will cause the acute tubular necrosis. So in this way, while giving the chemotherapy, it can also cause the acute tubular necrosis, that is acute kidney injury. Another thing, when the more cells are break down, actually the cells contain the potassium ion, so there will be increased potassium ion in the blood, and as there is increased potassium ion, they will cause hyperkalemia. So basically the potassium is increased in blood, and the more cells break down will also release phosphate in the blood. So there will be hypophosphatemia, that is increased level of phosphate in the blood. This phosphate actually bind the calcium, and due to which the blood calcium level decreases. So that's why there will be decreased calcium level in the blood. So there will be hyperkalemia, that is increased potassium in the blood. There will be increased phosphate in the blood, but there will be decreased calcium in the blood. And ultimately this tumor lysis syndrome, there is actually the uric acid is blocking the renal tubules and causing the acute tubular necrosis. So one of the cause of the renal AKI is renal vein thrombosis also. So most of the students got confused that the renal vein thrombosis is actually should be in the pre-renal AKI, but not. It is also a renal AKI. Why? As there is no problem in the entry of blood, so renal artery is it is okay. So there is no problem in the entering of the blood to the kidney, but while exiting of the blood from the renal vein, there is actually thrombus that is obstructing the blood flow, and due to which the blood flow reverses back to the kidney, and it actually causes the enlargement of the kidney. So the kidney enlarged due to the backflow of the blood to the kidney, and it will ultimately damage the renal parenchyma. So it is also kept in the renal cause of the AKI. So there are two things happen. One thing is that there is a kidney is enlarged. There is a kidney is enlarged, and another thing that is happening, that there is a damage to the renal parenchyma. Damage to renal parenchyma, and that is why it is kept under the renal cause of acute kidney injury. I talked about the renal vein thrombosis, but I do not talk that why the renal vein thrombosis was formed. So usually what happens in the children, in children, whenever there is a severe diarrhea, so after the severe diarrhea, what happens, there will be actually less amount of fluid in body, and similarly there is a less amount of fluid in the blood also. It means that the blood is hemoconcentrated. The blood is concentrated, so the blood is hemoconcentrated, and in hemoconcentrated blood, the circulation is basically sluggish. The circulation is sluggish, and due to which the renal vein, there can be the thrombus formation in renal vein. So thrombus formation in renal vein. So the thrombus formation is basically due to the hemoconcentration and sluggishness of the blood. So due to this, there can be the renal vein thrombosis. So in children, if the children has diarrhea, then you should think, and if the children come with the features of acute kidney injury, you should think two things. It can be either due to the hemolytic uremic syndrome, that the E. coli infection will lead to the production of cigatoxin and ultimately acute kidney injury that we have already discussed, or there can be the renal vein thrombosis. So in children, there are two etiologies after the diarrhea, and due to which the acute kidney injury can occur. Sometimes due to the malaria, due to basically the Plasmodium falciparum, can cause the acute kidney injury. So let's see how it can cause the acute kidney injury. Basically, the Plasmodium falciparum actually reproduces in a so fast and in a so rapid manner that there will be excessive parasitic load in blood, and so much parasitic load in blood that the medicine also may not work in many times, and this excessive parasitemia will ultimately cause the hemolysis. So this excessive parasitic load will ultimately cause the hemolysis, and due to which the hemoglobin is basically excreted in urine. That is, we will call it as hemoglobinuria. And this hemoglobinuria basically can block the tubules. So in this way, it can cause the acute kidney injury. So this was all about the renal causes of acute kidney injury. Now we have the last cause, that is a post-renal cause of acute kidney injury. And then the post-renal cause, you have to understand this figure. Let's suppose these are the kidneys, two kidneys, and this is the renal pelvis. These are the renal pelvis, and the renal pelvis ultimately get drained into the urinary bladder, and there is a urethra. So let's suppose this is a urethra, this is the urinary bladder, these are the pelvis, and these are the kidney. Now, if due to any reason the stone is actually get locked into this ureter, so this is basically ureter. So if due to any reason, if a stone is actually blocking the ureter, or the stone is blocking the outflow of the urine, either in the urinary bladder, or it may be the cancerous mass of the urinary bladder that is blocking the outflow of the urine, or there is a urethral any stricture that is blocking the urine. So basically it can be due to the stones, it can be due to the urinary bladder cancer, it can be due to the urethral stricture. So ultimately what happens, due to any reason, if the urine is not able to pass out from the this urinary tract, then what happens, the blood will get reversed back into the kidney and ultimately cause the kidney damage. So in this way, the In this way, the kidney damage occurs in case of the stone or the bladder cancer or the urethral stricture. The stone can be at any level. It can be at the level of ureter, it can be at the level of urinary bladder, or it can be in the urethra also. So these are the causes of the postrenal AKI, and these are the one of the less important causes in comparison to all other causes. Now the diagnosis and the treatment part and the classification part we will see in the next video. So thank you for watching this video. If you like, then subscribe my channel, comment. Thank you.